Welcome back to the Red Truck Woodshop. My name is Tim. This project is going to focus on a different cutting board. I made this cutting board for my daughter as a practice piece. Nice walnut cutting board, relatively thick as you can see. I've decided that I want to cut this in half this way so that I can try and preserve as much walnut as possible and make a different cutting board for my other daughter. So we're going to try and cut this in half the hard way and go from there. I made this jig for trying to cut the cutting board in half the hard way, and with my Shopsmith I'm going to slowly, progressively make deeper cuts on each side, each of the four sides. So that's what we're going to try and do here. Hopefully I don't screw anything up, but most importantly, hopefully I don't get hurt. I believe I've taken all the safety precautions I can. So you can see with my jig there, I've got it working in the T-slot. So shouldn't be any problem keeping it nice and straight there. Some people may ask, why am I making progressively deeper cuts? And the answer there is internal stresses in the wood and binding. By making progressively deeper cuts, you actually end up recutting, if you will, the kerf in there at the same time. I'll admit, I was rather nervous making these cuts with so much blade exposed. I had taken as many safety precautions as I thought I could, but still the nervousness is probably the best safety factor because I was a lot more cautious. That worked out pretty good. Yep. Alright, now, next thing, cut it with a handsaw the rest of the way. This is going to be a little bit laborious. Ooh, laborious. There's a word. Yes. Well, took a while. Approximately hour and a half to 2 hours. Yeah, about an hour and a half to 2 hours of hand sawing and resting. And then I took it over to the planer, ran it through a few hundred times so I could get a good clean surface to work with. And then I moved on to sketching on the board my design. I started with the heart in the middle as that was the main thing for me. And then the sections going out away from it that I'm drawing there, that's actually where one piece of wood will come in, and then there's where that same piece of wood will come out of the design. So they will be crossing each other, as you can see there. The heart is still very noticeable, but not as noticeable. Here, the first cut is being made. You can see that I'm not going to create the whole heart here, but only a part of it. That's because the curve was very tight, and bending the wood to that curve, I was concerned that we might get breakage. Then I moved on to cutting the thin strips. Here I'm cutting the purple heart, which will make up the actual heart of the board. Purple heart's a very nice wood, but it is also very hard and somewhat difficult to work with. I then moved on to cutting some cherry strips for a little bit of lighter contrast, but not, a white wood. And finally, I cut some maple strips to make up the main body of it. You can see here, I soaked the purple heart in water. The first time I tried to bend the purple heart into here, it actually cracked. So I found that I had to soak this particular set into water. This was only for the purple heart. The other pieces did not need to be soaked in water. I let this dry overnight, and then I was able to glue it up without any problems. Several people have asked me where I got these clamps. I will put a link in the description to these. Actually, these are made by Shopsmith. This particular set I have had for approximately 25 years. The new clamps are just a little bit different, but still a very good clamp. It gives you clamping pressure in all four directions, so there's no need for extra cauls, which makes it very nice. I let that dry overnight, then I took it apart and made the second cut, soaked the strip in water overnight, and clamped it up here, dry clamp, to let the wood form to the curve. Alright, so I'm doing a dry fit up of the second one here, and as I look closely, I can see a little bit of gap right in here that I need to fix up, and a little bit of gap right over here that I need to fix up. So I'm going to take this over to my drum sander, and I'm going to gently sand this away so that we can get a better fit up on this. After quite a bit of sanding and trial and error and dry clamping it together, I finally got things to fit pretty well. So I decided to glue it up and see how it turned out. Alright, well, sanding reveals that the gaps on this side are kind of big. You can see some right here, but I don't see any over here. When I flip it over, the gaps are in a different spot. So I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. We'll give her a good try. I'll cut the next one and put her together. After that, it was just more cut and glue and cut and glue. I ended up putting in 12 strips, so that's 12 times cutting and gluing. And I do want to note that I sanded each time in between. It also turned out those gaps from earlier were not an issue. After some sanding and a little bit of planing, it ended up that the gaps were barely noticeable. You really would have to look close to see them. This is my favorite part, where the oil brings out the colors in the wood. It's just fantastic, and the pride that you feel in a job well done.